A massive cloud of Sahara dust is blanketing the Caribbean, sparking health concerns in the midst of the coronavirus pandemic. India and China reached a mutual consensus to withdraw troops from their disputed Himalayan border area. The UN Secretary-General participated in a virtual conference to address the challenges facing the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian refugees. From the headquarters of Telesur English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South, and I'm Katrina Goss. A massive cloud of Sahara dust is blanketing the Caribbean in the midst of the coronavirus pandemic. Our correspondent in the Dominican Republic, Daisy Toussaint, brings us more details on this phenomenon as well as the spread of the COVID-19 virus.
Hello, greetings to you and all our viewers. The cloud of Sahara dust is already affecting the Antilles and the Caribbean with high concentrations of particles. According to satellite images from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, it is also affecting southeast Cuba and the Yucatan Peninsula, while Central American countries are preparing for the arrival of the phenomenon, which can cause irritation to the eyes and mild respiratory conditions, especially for people with asthma. The Dominican Republic has felt the effects of the phenomenon since Monday. As you can see behind me, there is a dense cloud of dust that almost completely blocks out the sun. In terms of COVID-19 statistics reported in the Dominican Republic until today, the number of confirmed cases has reached 27,936 cases, and the number of fatalities has risen to 675. In neighboring Haiti, President Jovenel Moïse pardoned 415 prisoners in the framework of the decongestion of prison to limit the spread of COVID-19. We should remember that since March, following the arrival of the pandemic, the Haitian government ordered the release of prisoners according to certain criteria related to their age, previous illness and sentences. However, social organizations have described the process as very slow. According to the latest report, Haiti has reported 5,211 cases, of which 88 have died. This is all the information we have on the Caribbean for the moment. Back to you in the studio.
A 7.5 magnitude earthquake struck southern Mexico on Tuesday, killing at least 4 people and causing buildings to shake hundreds of miles away. The quake was centered in the Pacific Ocean, about 14 miles off the coast of the southern state of Oaxaca. President Andrés Manuel López Obrador said there had been 147 aftershocks following the quake, while experts warned that more were expected.
First, I felt the shake, but it was not that bad. And then I felt a little bit stronger, and I said, I better get out. It was very strong. The shake catch us sleeping, and me and my wife were very scared. We felt it very strong amidst the COVID-19 situation, and now this, what is next?
On Tuesday, Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro expressed his satisfaction with the almost 600 buses fully assembled thanks to the country's great transport mission. The Venezuelan president noted that the minimum goal is to achieve the production of 2,000 bus units by the end of 2020. Meanwhile, Vice President Delcy Rodriguez explained that over 1,000 transport vehicles recently arrived in the country as part of the cooperation agreement with the People's Republic of China in order to continue to improve public transport. And Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro provided an update on the COVID-19 situation in the country this Tuesday, noting there were 58 new locally transmitted cases and 81 imported cases.
We have 81 imported cases today. Of those 81, 66 arrived from Colombia. They came through the border, so they are Colombian cases. There is 1 case from Brazil, 8 from Peru and 6 from Ecuador. They are compatriots, fellow citizens that came walking from Peru and are continuing to arrive. When they cross the border, they arrive already infected with the coronavirus.
And Venezuelan Vice President Delcy Rodriguez also spoke about how the application of plasma is helping in the treatment of COVID-19 patients.
We have checked our protocol and treatment levels. We are at the same level of care as the rest of the world, and we can reveal that we are going to start using plasma. The plasma of recovered patients that, as you know, has had very positive results in most of the countries in which it has been used, and we are also going to start using it here in the treatment of plant in Venezuela.
And also in Venezuela, new lockdown measures have been implemented in order to fight the spread of COVID-19. These are being applied in 10 states, including restrictions on movement, work and the economy.
Caracas began its week without the metro this Monday, a result of the new arrangements to radicalize the quarantine in the capital and other states. The fourth phase of plan of 7 days of partial economic activity, followed by 7 days of quarantine, has begun. During the week of June 22nd until the 28th, only users who work in the prioritized sectors can circulate in the emulated metro and rail system, telecommunication, health, water, security, energy, food, and transportation. All will need to be properly identified with ID card. Now transport authorities will be running limited metro service so that sectors of workers exempt from the quarantine order can be mobile in the areas of health, food, security, telecommunications, and services.
They've taken good measures, but in recent weeks, things have gotten away a bit, because people been going out in public a lot of and have not taken preventative measures, like the use of face masks, the use of gloves, that leads to people becoming infected.
The preventative measures are taken despite Venezuela presenting some of the lowest levels of contagion in the region. Last week, 24 types of economic establishments or areas were open, between malls, gyms, shoe stores, textile, banks, etc. This week, those economic sectors are called to remain closed. The quarantine is maintained along with prevention measures as countries of the region continue to see a rise in cases.
It would be good to continue, but people need to continue following rules and regulations. There are people who take off their masks or wear it just on their mouths without covering their noses. We don't accomplish anything if there are some who don't follow the rules.
The measures are aimed at stopping the coronavirus spread by taking care of health, but while progressively reactivating the economy.
Brazil and Chile have set new records in their COVID-19 epidemics in the past day. Brazil has now surpassed 50,000 COVID-19 deaths, while Chile reported more than 4,000 new infections in just 24 hours. According to the latest figures, the number of confirmed cases worldwide has now surpassed 9.2 million, while the number of COVID-19 deaths stands at over 476,000. Brazil and the United States have contributed significantly to the rise in the global number of cases, with 183,000 new cases confirmed in the last 24 hours alone. Chile has already surpassed Italy in terms of the number of people infected at over 250,000 to take 8th place in the world. And Chilean Senator Adriana Muñoz reacted to President Sebastián Piñera's announcement that he would establish an external commission to ensure motions passed by Congress were in accordance with the Constitution.
In view of the declarations of the President of the Republic, I want to state that the processing of bills that have controversy in matter of admissibility, it is regulated in the regulations of the Senate and its organic law of the Congress. Therefore, the prerogative to declare the permissibility of these bills is of the President of the Chamber of Deputies and of the President of the Senate. If the government has differences with the declaration, it has the power to go to the Constitutional Court and propose an interpretation of the constitutionality to these projects. In my opinion, it is very inappropriate what the President of the Republic is doing, because by trying to modify the powers that the National Congress has in its internal regulations, he is seriously affecting the independence and the autonomy of the powers of the state.
Some Kentucky residents reported long waits to vote in person in Lexington on Tuesday as primaries were held in the U.S. state. The primaries this Tuesday and in recent months have raised concerns about the United States' ability to run a smooth election come November if the coronavirus pandemic continues. With the potential resurgence of the coronavirus in the fall, many are wondering how they will vote in November without jeopardizing their health. Some lawmakers are calling for universal voting by mail, while others are saying it's not worth the risk. And we're taking a very short break now, so don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. India and China reached a mutual consensus to withdraw troops from the Eastern Ladakh region. Talks were held on the Chinese side of the disputed border, known as the Line of Actual Control, in order to diffuse tensions in the area. Both sides agreed to disengage their troops from the friction areas in Eastern Ladakh. This was the second such meeting this month.
On June 22nd, the border troops of China and India held their second Army Commander level meeting in the border region. It was also the first Army Commander level meeting since the Galwan Valley incident occurred on June 15th. This meeting shows that both China and India are willing to properly handle their differences, manage the situation and ease tensions through dialogue. On the consensus reached at the first Army Commander level meeting, the two sides exchanged views on the outstanding problems facing border control in a candid and in-depth manner, agreed to take necessary measures to push for the de-escalation of the situation. They also agreed to maintain dialogue and work jointly to promote peace and tranquility in the border areas.
And a week after clashes on their disputed Himalayan border left 20 Indian troops dead, and following virtual talks with his Indian and Chinese counterparts, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov stressed he doesn't think China and India need any outside help to resolve their disputes.
Meetings of the military command and contacts between foreign ministers took place immediately after the border conflict. If I understand correctly, these contacts are currently continuing and none of the parties has made a statement indicating a lack of will to act, agree according to common approaches.
Mongolians are set to elect a new parliament on Wednesday despite controversies regarding candidates flouting quarantine rules and thousands of people stranded overseas unable to vote. 2,000 polling stations have been set up for Wednesday's legislative elections. Despite strict lockdown restrictions, the country's two main parties have broken bans on gatherings of over 30 people by holding big campaign rallies. The country has only reported 215 coronavirus cases and no fatalities. The ruling Mongolian People's Party is expected to gain the most from the vote. China stated on Tuesday that the US military is deploying unprecedented numbers of forces to the Asia-Pacific region, raising the risk of an international incident. Experts say the possibility of a military incident or an accidental shot fired is rising, adding that if a crisis were to erupt, the repercussions on bilateral relations would be catastrophic. According to a report, the United States has deployed more than 300,000 soldiers and 60% of its warships in the Indo-Pacific region.
The U.S. military strength is already in an overwhelming advantage in the Asia-Pacific region, but they are still seeking to increase their military deployment in the Asia-Pacific region to expand and maintain its absolute superiority.
Russia is set to stage its 75th annual Victory Day parade in Moscow on Wednesday. The parade was delayed this year due to the coronavirus pandemic, moving from May 9th to June 24th, the day the Soviet Union held its victory parade in 1945 at Moscow's Red Square. Victory Day is Russia's most important secular holiday and marks the defeat of Nazi Germany in 1945 and the end of the Second World War. Serbia has issued emergency measures in several municipalities after heavy rains caused widespread damage. According to local authorities, surging rivers led to around 700 homes being flooded in western and central Serbia, and some 70 families in the western town of Ljubovija have been forced to evacuate their homes. Meanwhile, in neighbouring Bosnia, a landslide cut off a key road connecting the central town of Tuzla with the capital Sarajevo. Portuguese authorities have reimposed COVID-19 restrictions as new cases continue to emerge in Lisbon's metropolitan areas. Commercial establishments now have to close at 8 p.m. with the exception of restaurants. Gatherings will be limited to a maximum of 10 people and inspections will be carried out at construction workshops. Meanwhile, 345 new COVID-19 cases were reported on Monday, bringing the total number confirmed in Portugal to almost 40,000. And we're taking one last short break now, but we have more stories coming up, so stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres participated in a virtual conference to address the challenges facing the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian refugees. The extraordinary virtual ministerial conference was co-chaired by Jordanian Foreign Minister Ayman al-Safadi and Swedish Minister for International Development Cooperation Peter Eriksson. The event highlighted the need to contribute to the UN agency so that it can bridge its funding gap this year and continue to support Palestinian refugees. At the beginning of 2018, the United States, which was one of the agency's main donors, drastically cut its contributions, leaving it with a deficit of some $250 million.
We meet at a time when all prospects for a just, comprehensive peace, that is the right of all peoples of the region, are being threatened by Israel's decision to annex 1/3 of the occupied West Bank in violation of international law. Annexation must not happen, for if it does, it will kill the two-state solution and will undermine all chances for peace. All of us who believe in international law, all of us who want peace for the whole region, must speak and must act against annexation.
Our objective today was clear: to come together to mobilize political and financial support for the vital work of UNRWA, an agency that is not only a lifeline for millions of Palestinian refugees, but also critical for regional stability.
The UN Special Representative for South Sudan, David Shearer, issued a warning on Tuesday about escalating violence in the country as the transnational government has not yet been appointed.
Violence can no longer be pigeonholed as simply intercommunal. Fighters in uniform have been spotted amongst them, suggesting that organised forces may be joining in on the conflict, which risks unravelling the ceasefire. A truly unified national government leadership would have acted promptly and stepped in to curb this conflict. Instead, the violence has been allowed to play out and is being used to sort out power arrangements at the national and subnational levels. This cycle of impunity fuels serious human rights violations where civilians once again bear the brunt.
Voters in Malawi defied the coronavirus on Tuesday to head to the polls for the second time in just over a year, after President Peter Mutharika's re-election was annulled in a dramatic court ruling. The much-anticipated rerun was ordered by the Constitutional Court, which declared there were grave and widespread irregularities in the May 2019 vote, narrowly won by Mutharika. In the last vote, Mutharika, who turns 80 next month, won with 38.5% of the ballots against his main rival, Lazarus Chakwera's 35%. This time round, a candidate will have to secure more than 50% of the vote to be declared the winner.
I want to serve Malawians with integrity, and I want to be able to make Malawi a united nation. And I want to be able to make sure that we respect the rule of law and we are able to deal with what has impoverished us, which to some extent is the theft of public funds and the corruption. So I don't know.
South Africa's former president, Jacob Zuma, returned to court on Tuesday for the latest round in a corruption case that saw lawyers clash over the much-delayed proceedings. Zuma faces 16 charges of fraud, corruption and racketeering relating to the purchase of fighter jets, patrol boats and military equipment. The former president allegedly took bribes of 4 million rand over a $3.4 billion arms deal with a French aerospace and defence company in 1999 when he was deputy president. Zuma was forced to step down in 2018 by the ruling African National Congress after 9 years as president.
Having asked for it twice from our learned friends.
Syria's ambassador to Lebanon has spoken against the latest US sanctions on Damascus.
Syria is reassessing its situation in order to strengthen its forces and its people in the face of these sanctions because the blood that was spilled in defense of Syria's sovereignty and its dignity and its right to dignity cannot be neglected, and America realizes this. Therefore, I see it as a hopeless blow rather than behavior that shows awareness and a reading of America's interest. The blockade is a direct and blatant aggression against the dignity of all people of this region, and not just against Syria alone, because the Syrians and the Lebanese and the Palestinians and the Jordanians and the Iraqis, all of them are in the same boat, and America realizes that losses are what awaited more than the possibilities of profiting from this unjust law that violates international sovereignty and international law above all.
Egyptian authorities said on Tuesday they are willing to continue negotiations over the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam to reach an agreement favourable to all sides. The statement came in response to a claim made by the Ethiopian Foreign Minister that Egypt was attempting to escape negotiations by calling on the United Nations Security Council to intervene. Earlier this week, Ethiopia said it would continue filling the dam's reservoir regardless of the outcome of any talks, prompting Egypt to lodge a formal complaint with the UN. And we've come to the end of this news brief, but you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And you can also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Katrina Goss, and thank you for watching.
Innovation, science,